Good to see you. Welcome to our visitors from around the world. I've got to stand still because Big Tank are trying to... no, it's belly flop, isn't it, today? Brilliant. Hi, belly flop. So we're about to go live to YouTube and live stream us around Lancashire and further afield. So it's great to see our audience both here and online. First and most important thing... Have you logged your vehicle registration in at reception? Because if you don't, you will get a fine. They're very efficient. Please go and do it. If you haven't done it, we'll let you off. That's the most important thing. So, welcome. This is our Lancashire Devolution Consultation event. Lancashire and all of our thoughts and aspirations, we know, have been all about how do we make our county as good as it could be, how do we make our businesses in Lancashire as good as they could be. And for years and years we've looked further afield and we've looked at the funding coming into other areas, to combined authorities, to investment zones, and we have complained. And we have said this is not good enough. Lancashire is wonderful and the root of manufacturing for the world, and why do we not get equivalent investment? And the argument thrown back at us is because you are not involved, you are not a combined authority, and you are not in that pathway to get that accelerated funding. So this is all about Lancashire taking those first steps. In the autumn of last year, Lancashire County Council, Blackburn and Darwen Council and Blackpool Council signed the first agreement with government to start to develop devolution for Lancashire and a Lancashire Combined Authority. And this is the key part of that consultation exercise. The official consultation exercise ends on the 26th of January. There's a questionnaire for you to fill in. We've sent you the link, we'll send it again. We need you to help shape this deal how you want it to be. This is your opportunity. We need to make it right for Lancashire. In a moment, I'm going to hand over to Phil Riley, the leader of Blackburn and Darwen Council, and then he'll hand on to Andy Walker, Chief Executive of the LEP, and from Lancashire County Council to tell you all about the proposal, all about the consultation, all about what the intention is, and try and make sure through a really hopefully extensive Q&A session you get your voices heard and your questions answered. The most important things to think of right now though is this is the first step on that journey. We can't look and compare it with Manchester and Liverpool and the amounts they get now. This is our first step. You have to look back to their first step on that journey well over a decade ago. And also try to dial back on the contention about should we have a mayoral authority or not a mayoral authority. We can go further down this road. This is the first step. So we want you to help really shape this. Raise your arguments, raise your interest. Talk about your business and what your business needs from this. Make sure that we're shaping this in the right way for Lancashire to be devolved to best serve the economy and your businesses. So let me hand over to Phil Riley, you've seen me. Let me hand over to Phil Riley, the leader of Blackburn with Darwen Council. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. What I thought I would just take you on I was going to say a small history lesson. If it was a long history lesson, it will go on a long time. As Miranda has alluded to, we've been talking about this as a group of leaders of the Lancashire authorities for a bloody long time, and so it's a delight to me that we are. Or I'm able to stand here and talk about something that we're actually going to do, because as Miranda has just said, I think this is what we should be doing. Just let me make one point really, which sort of covers some of the background, which is that, I mean, you'll know this, but let me just insult you by saying that there are 15 authorities in Lancashire. So there is the County Council, there are 2 unitaries, Blackburn with Darwen and Blackpool, and then there are 12 districts of varying size, different political persuasions, certainly different socio-economic backgrounds. And that is the background to the fact that it's taken us an awful long time to get to here. And here is a situation where the government allowed us about a year ago to make a decision that was only made by the top 3 unitary authorities, Lancashire County Council, Blackburn and Blackpool. And that's a bit of a background, because at some stage somebody's going to say, does it matter that all the or some of the districts are passing resolutions at council saying they don't want anything to do with this? So, I mean, the brief answer to that question is it doesn't matter, but it's been tortuous to get to where we've got to, and we needed a big hand up from the government, which effectively was that provided the 3 top-tier authorities could come to some agreement, then they were prepared to push the boat out. And broadly, that's what's happened. So what we've got up there is just the document. Go on, Andy, moving on. Right, and as Miranda said, there was a signing ceremony in the auspicious Shire Hall at Lancaster Castle, with the leaders of the authorities and the great and the good, and that's us all there. And the Levelling Up Minister, who is relatively new, Jacob Young, has been very enthusiastic since he took over. He's been up to see us a couple of times, and he's shown a real appetite. And just let me make another point, really, which is a bit of a background, which is that the composition of Lancashire is similar to a number of other counties in England, if you think about it. So the big places that have got devolution deals, the ones that you read about in the paper, are big urban areas like Greater Manchester or Liverpool and such like. What the government are really keen to do is to find a way of breaking into places like Lancashire, where there is this kind of sort of mixed composition of local authorities. And there is quite a lot of them, particularly in the south of England, Cheshire, that kind of stuff, Staffordshire, going south. Effectively, Lancashire is now surrounded by devolved authorities, Greater Manchester, and in fact now Cumbria and, no sorry, not Cumbria, it's become Cumberland and Westmoreland, and North Yorkshire. So we're surrounded by them, but there is another point that the government wants to do, which is to work out how to get at these places, as I said, with very mixed backgrounds. So that's us in, and then what then happened was that the 3, and this was what was required, was that the 3 authorities had to have a meeting at which we agreed to go forward, and as you can see on there was unanimous agreement at all of them, which was right and good, and also a kind of help because it indicates to the government that they're not wasting the time in talking to us. So this is what's happening now. So we've entered a period of 2 months. We're very close to the end of it. So to pick up Miranda's point from earlier, we want you to, if you've not made a contribution to the consultation, please do so, particularly if you're going to be positive, but you can make a contribution anyway. But you've got not very long to do it, so the consultation ends, I think, at the end of this week, in fact. So there is still time. And there have been a number of, I mean, what we wanted, I mean, somebody said to me the other day, like, why didn't you leaflet every house in Lancashire kind of stuff? And you're thinking, man, that's a job and a half, and it costs a fortune, and most people won't read them, and most people won't understand what they wear. So what we've tried to do instead is have a series of sort of dedicated events in public spaces across Lancashire where people could talk to us, chat to us, and understand what it was that we were trying to do. So that's what that is saying up there. And the next stage is that we go on, Andy. The next stage is the results are analysed by Ipsos. So there's a slightly arm's length piece of work here, and they will produce. Well, they will decide that it's worth going forward. And I mean, without spoiling the sort of story, most of the responses from individuals and from businesses are positive. There's obviously lots of questions, but most of the headline story, as I would have expected, and as I guess you would expect, is that people think that the sort of trend, the kind of route that we've got onto is the right one to be doing. And go on, let me just expand a bit on that. So those of you who follow your own district councils you may be reading that why didn't we do it a different way? Well, this is the way. You know, the government have made it absolutely plain to us that this was the only way to do it. I mean, and in truth, we, as a group of leaders, we wasted about 18 months by trying to convince the government that if they would agree, we could come up with some sort of bespoke Lancashire model that didn't fit with any of their agreed ways forward. And I mean, and realistically, we wasted an awful lot of time doing that, because every time we attempted to ask them, where are you with your considerations, they would say, which bit of the rules haven't you read? Because this bespoke model isn't any of the ones that we agreed to go forward on. And there were three, effectively, they talked about, which was, there was a sort of a level one, which broadly was hardly anything. There's a level two, which is what we've ended up with, which is the non-mayoral county authority. And then there's a level three, which is the one that we're all used to, which is the Andy Burnham model of an elected mayor. And we ended up trying to convince them for a period of time that there was a bespoke Lancashire model, and they were absolutely clear that there wasn't. So we reached a stage where if we hadn't gone down the route that we have gone down, there was no route to go down. And our view as the three leaders was that would be akin to saying to the government that we didn't want a devolution deal. And our view was that was really absolutely the wrong thing to do. So for us, as a pragmatic choice, this was the choice. It was either yes or no to this. And if there are any suggestions that there were other options on the table, they just weren't. And as I said, we have wasted an awful lot of time trying to get them to buy into a bespoke model. So this was the set of choices. So what that lies is telling us up there is that once we've got a sort of understanding that the consultation has been successful, then each of the three councils has to go through another little meeting and say they're still okay to carry on. And then you're up there, which is, it goes back to the government, so that's in March 24, and then they go through various governmental things, laying an order, statutory instruments. And so with, at the moment, with a sort of favourable wind, we should be up and running by October of this year. It's probably fair to say that there might be an intervention by a general election. So if there were to be a general election in May, then I think that timetable might go for a Burton. Quite what that will mean, whether we go to the back of the queue or whether we'll be hanging around in limbo. But if there's a general election at the end of the year, then we're very thoughtful-minded that it'll be over and done with, and clearly that's where we want to be. So we, in the meantime, so in the meantime, there's a fair bit of work now going on amongst the three authorities and their officers to start to put the different sort of pieces together. Those are our proposals, and the whole concept of devolution is that we bring powers that are currently carried out at Westminster to Lancashire. That's what it is, and that's what you've been watching for the last 10 years happening in Manchester, where effectively the Mayor of Manchester and the authorities bring down powers. So that's what we want to do. It's also fair to say that from the government's point of view, this is the game in town now. I think that the days of a delegation of councillors and officers from Blackburn turning up in London and wanting to talk to a minister are long gone. They want to, they particularly want to pass powers on, and we think that's the right thing to do. But they also, I think, they don't want to end up with a cavalcade of small authorities all turning up and talking to them. So that's not a runner anymore. So what you can see on there is the various functions that we're looking at. So the first major piece of power that we are getting and bringing down from Westminster is what you see there, which is the adult education budget. I think that's around about 50 million. So what that means is that the government currently in Westminster spend on our behalf around about £50 million on adults education. They spend it for us, they tell us the answers, it arrives in an envelope and says, here you are. The difference now is that effectively the money comes to us and we spend it, but we spend it on the back of consultations, discussions. We're here, you're here, we can have discussions. And the argument, and I think this is pretty straightforward, the argument is that process is better and likely to produce a better outcome and a better results than it being done to us. And certainly that's the model that everybody else is working on, and they like that. So there's then, obviously, some of the service, so there will be a strategic transport authority, which is about us linking up together and joining together in our analysis and desire of what the transport in Lancashire looks like. There's a point there which is about the LEP, so the government, independent of this process, the government have effectively decided to abolish LEPs. And what will happen now is that the functions of the LEP will come into the combined county authority, and we're in the process of seeing that happen. And the key issue there is to make absolutely sure that doesn't mean any loss of, it should not mean any loss of influence of businesses on the process of decision making. It should in fact mean a significant improvement in it. So that's what that's about. Transport functions I've mentioned, and then we recently had a UK Shared Prosperity Fund that was administered by each different local authority. At the moment there is no evidence that there's going to be another version of that, but if there were, we have agreed as part of our indication to the districts is that it would be dispensed in the same way as the previous one was. So that's where we are, that's what's happening. So it's right, so why is it a great deal? So it's the right thing to do because, as I said, mainly because it's about functions and functionalities and powers coming down to us and being distributed and analysed and by us, not by people in Westminster. That's the principle, that's devolution, if you want. So our aspirations then, obviously, are that it improves and helps with regeneration. So let me just make a point that drifts into my head, which is that obviously at the current moment, the districts they work with and are managed by Lancashire County Council. That's how it is. So the two unitary authorities, Blackpool and Blackburn, we have all the powers. We do everything. And that was the decision that we both took in 1997-8, when we effectively seceded from Lancashire County Council. We took the view, and it's an interesting view because it's a sort of almost an early form of devolution. We took the view that decision making was better done by us in Blackburn with Darwen, because it enabled us to focus on the issues that were really significant to us, rather than getting them lost in a very diverse and very varied Lancashire. And that's not a criticism of it, that was just us saying that we felt that. So we do everything. The rest of the county is what's called two-tier, and that means the districts do some of the powers, but the county council does the major powers on their behalf. Under this proposal, that relationship isn't going to change. There will still be Lancashire County Council involved in it, and the districts will still be part of a two-tier system that Lancashire County Council is the top tier on. There's another completely different argument that might be going through your heads about local government reorganisation and all that stuff, and because that is that's pretty tectonic in discussions. That's never. Everybody understood, and the government have been quite clear about that. This is not about local government reform. This is about powers coming down. So that's what we're doing there, and that's what it. So it's going to be. There's two slides now. One about what it is and one about what it isn't. So it's democratically led in the sense that there are. There's 4 votes on the combined county authority. I've got 1, Blackpool have got 1, and the county council have got 2. So, sorry, let's make another point, which is that underpinning all of that and all the conversations we've been having for the last 18 months, there is a belief that we should be in the situation of agreeing, that we should not be getting to meetings and voting each other down and trying to vote each other down, because in my view, if that happens, then we're kind of failing, really, because there's no requirement for it to be done that way. This should be about, every major decision that we take ought to be supported by evidence that's been gathered by officers talking and us talking to yourselves, and we all understand the way forward is X, that's where we should be at. So it is democratically led in the sense that in the end, I stand for elections. If people think I'm making a dog's dinner of this, then they can get rid of me. So it is that. There will be a loud and clear voice for the business. So there is a new business board, and they will have membership of the combined county authority. The districts, as I said, will still, they have 2 non-voting members on the combined county authority, and as I said earlier, 2 minutes ago, the fact that they're not voting doesn't, I don't think any of us ought to be voting. I really I would be distressed in the end if we ended up in a situation where this kept coming down to votes, because it will be wrong. So there will be 2 there, and the authority meetings are open to the public, and as you'd expect with local government, etc., there's an audit and there's scrutiny committees, and there's that background behind that. Now, what it isn't, so there's no mayor, there's no new politicians, so there's no new level of, if you want, paid for. This is another job for me, and is the top and bottom of that. So at this current moment, there's the 4 of us who are sitting on the CCA are all elected members 2 from the County Council, 1 from Blackpool, and me. So there's no new layers of politicians, there's no new elections. As I said earlier, it's got nothing to do with local government reform, so there's no boundary changes of anything. And so if you don't get confused with the fact that all your parliamentary boundaries are being changed, that's for Parliament, that's completely separate from this. There are no new council boundaries. There's no powers being taken away from the district, so this, as I've said a number of times now, is about power coming down to us, not going the other way. And there's no increase in the council tax bill because there's no need, there's no requirements, there's no new politicians, and it will be covered by the current precepts of the council tax. So effectively, that's what it isn't, and the previous slide was what it was, and I think that's right. Okay. So, key point that Miranda made at the beginning is that this is the start. So the only sense of, so Andy Burnham is now on, I think, Devo deal 7 or 8. So there is no point at all in comparing this deal with where Andy's up to now. The only sensible comparison might be this deal with where they began, and that's pretty much in the midst of time. And the whole principle of this, and if you look at how it's happened in the other devolved authorities, it's almost like a permanent conversation, and we've been advised by MPs and such like that the most sensible way to play this is that the moment you get an agreement on this deal, then you then start the conversations on the next one. And effectively, it's about us illustrating to us being Lancashire, illustrating to the government that we are a safe pair of hands, that they can give us powers, and that we will sensibly use them and will advance them to advance Lancashire, to make a difference in all the things that we've seen in the previous slides. It does mean more money, it does mean more money, you know, I mean, it's fair to say that it could have, you know, I mean, like everything in life, it could have been better, there could have been more, but the key takeaway, I think, from this is that this was the only option. And if we'd said we didn't want this, we would be akin to saying that we didn't want a devolution deal. And if you think where that would have left us, there's going to be a general election in the course of this year, sometime or another. There will be a new government of whatever persuasion. That new government presumably starts again, tries to do things. We want to be part of the devolved family for that new government. We don't want to be at the back of the room, waving our hands saying, and don't forget us, please, because they will quite legitimately, and whoever it was, would quite legitimately say, do you know what it is that you want? And that's when it all gets tricky for us, because the moment we start talking about it, we all want something different. So the key takeaways really was that this was the deal. If we hadn't taken it, there's nothing else, and it is the foundation for the future. So we illustrate to them that we can do the right things with those, particularly the adult skills budget, and that then enables us to go back and talk about the next things. And we already know what the next things are. It's not a secret, but it is about us indicating to the government that we are a safe pair of hands in Lancashire. So I think that's me. That's me. Thank you very much.
Morning all. Just to reiterate the structure of today's event, if I'm still going at 1:30, please drag me off, because the purpose of this is for you to have your say. So we've built into this event this morning a good half hours for Q&A at the end that Simon will lead us through with a roving mic. But I will now take you through some of the key themes in a bit more detail that are within our devolution proposal document. You should all have these black cards on the table in front of you. It's 11:59 noon on Friday. This consultation period ends. So there's a limited period of time for you guys to actually get your thoughts and your views back and get those formally recorded as part of a consultation process on this document. As Phil's already said, please do that if you're positive, but please do that if you're negative as well. This is a consultation process whereby the information will be gathered by Ipsos Mori will be expected to reflect on how that is different from the priorities that are set within the devolution deal document itself, and come back to government, which shows that we've listened. So this is a really important exercise. It's not just about numbers, it is about genuinely influencing the content and the priorities of this combined county authority, which could well be in place in the autumn of this year. So, in terms of the main devolution work streams, I'll take you through 8 slides. In effect, number 8 is how we do those things, so it's not a theme in its own right, it's about how we do. Really 7 areas of policy that the devolution deal is trying to expand on and trying to lead in Lancashire. First of those themes is around innovation, trade and investment. So a lot of very business-focused activity within here. First of all, the county is going to need a refreshed economic strategy. Government has made it quite clear that unless we have a document which shows that direction of travel, which they're bought into and Lancashire in its entirety is bought into, that will weaken us when we go to government. And as Phil has already said, this is about having a clearer, more mature conversation with government where they're bought into that direction of travel and are able to support that. There are 3 real legs to the devolution deals that have gone through so far. The first is about local decision making, which is a prize in its own right. The second for mayors is a large investment fund, which we don't get at this stage. But the third is the ability to compete more effectively for other sources of government investment as we move forward. As has been said previously, this is the first step and the first of any number of deals, but it's important that we do make that clear and strategic case to government. Phil's already mentioned UK Shared Prosperity Fund, so I won't dwell on that. But we have talked about, well, is there any cash within this deal? There is a £20 million capital pot, which comes as part of the devolution deal, which is being split 4 ways. And 6 million of that, as you can see in the 4th bullet point there, is being spent to bring forward the concept of an innovation hub, a facility at Samlesbury that's going to help local businesses and local individuals engage with National Cyber Force as they start to build up their presence at Samlesbury over that period of time. As you can imagine, you can't go and knock on the door of National Cyber Force and ask for a job or ask for a contract. You need to be able to engage with their primes and their supply chain to be able to do that, and we need to engage the imagination of young people and career changers in Lancashire about the opportunities that exist there. Blackburn will also have an allocation of £6 million, which are towards its innovation quarter, bringing forward developments in their own right that develop that technical expertise amongst young people and create that training to bring forward to new digital jobs within the economy as broader than just cyber, because the digitisation of the economy is ubiquitous. Every sector needs to go down that route, and we need to be doing more to train our young people and inspire our young people in that respect. Skills is the second of the 7 themes. The adult skills budget, which is devolved as part of this deal, is worth somewhere in the region of £20 to £30 million a year. So that would be local decision making around how that fund is used. I appreciate there's college principals in the room and training providers in the room will probably shoot me, but for the layman like myself, the adult skills budget is pretty much everything out with the formal education system. So people who are out with the workforce at the moment and want to re-engage, people who are within the workforce who need to retrain and upgrade their skills to move into a different job. The decision making about those funds is coming to Lancashire. Transport. I've had sessions that have talked extensively about trams and why the trams aren't part of this. As far as I'm aware, we can't use trams if we haven't got lines, so one thing comes after another. We'll start borrowing Blackpool's trams when we've got the tram lines in, but this is about strategic decision making on transport, bringing those three upper tier local authorities who already have that responsibility closer together, speaking with one voice, clarity, priorities about where Lancashire's opportunities lie for more integrated work around transport, backing up the economic investments that are being made and making sure the transport infrastructure is there to get people to those jobs. Net zero and climate change, given that we're with the Chamber today, an area where Miranda and her team have done much to lead in terms of helping businesses recognise their carbon footprint, to reduce their energy consumption, but not just that, to develop low carbon goods and services, to recognise that the advanced manufacturing base of places like East Lancashire has a massive opportunity to diversify into the low carbon sector and to make Lancashire a leader in that space. In the last couple of weeks, significant announcements around nuclear, a £110 million nuclear fuel fund, taking advantage of the fact that nobody wants to buy their nuclear fuel from Russia anymore, which is great news for Springfield and Westinghouse in the west of Lancashire, but creates massive opportunities for the supply chain and that northwest coastal arc running from Sellafield round to Anglesey, where a lot of the nuclear assets of the UK are actually clustered these days. Digital and cyber, we've already talked about National Cyber Force and the potential game changer that is for Lancashire, but also colleagues in Blackpool are fortunate in that the super-fast Atlantic connection of the North Atlantic Loop actually pops up on the beach in Blackpool. Being a microsecond faster than London in terms of talking to the markets in Wall Street actually confers economic advantage, and Blackpool with its enterprise zone are looking at edge data centres, utilising the green energy that's produced offshore in the Irish Sea to actually back up those data centres and address the carbon footprint that they produce. Again, £6 million going towards that demonstrator project at Blackpool Enterprise Zone. Culture and tourism, within its own right, a really important sector for some parts of the county, particularly Blackpool, but also to our rural economy. The events programmes and the events activity that are happening increasingly, and the focus, the increased number of Arts Council recognised and backed organisations within Lancashire make this a key sector, not only in its own right, but in the way we talk about and we project Lancashire. We're in a fight for skills. We're in a fight for skills with places like Manchester and Liverpool, and unless we have an attractive quality of life, unless we have a vibrant cultural life and a diverse and cultural life, then we won't be able to compete for those skills. So culture and tourism are a priority in their own right within this document. And finally, in terms of the 7 strands, housing and land, a commitment to support the delivery of decent, affordable and low carbon housing for every community. Some elements of the £20 million being used for housing retrofit to add value to an existing project within Lancashire, and to bring forward strategic development sites and infrastructure opportunities faster and more strategically. So as I say, the last of the 8 slides is about doing this. The Combined County Authority is not only a new sort of structure in this space, but it represents a commitment to work more collaboratively and in a more integrated way around this activity. Phil has already mentioned the transition I guess for this audience, where is the business voice in this? A new business board taking shape as a successor to the local enterprise partnership and with a full seat, non-voting seat, but at the table with the senior politicians and able to represent business within this new structure. We'll see if this works, shall we? If people have got their mobile phones with them, I don't know if you're too far away, but if that works, can you log into Slido? Otherwise, go to slido.com and when prompted, enter that reference number.
I'll just chip in with the guest Wi-Fi. If you're struggling with 4G then or 5G, you can go on the Wi-Fi network conference, and the password for conference is the word delegates 2021. So delegates 2021, all lowercase.
Are people getting in? Is that working? So, I've talked you through sort of 7 key priority areas there. You should now have an option on your phone to actually type in any contributions which should appear on the screen. So, people are. But I'd like to think about any themes, any areas, any concerns that you have that you would like to see within this document. Just give that a second for people's ideas to come through. So again, starting to see some broader ideas come through in terms of what people want within the document. Quite a bit around the social component, which is in there, but maybe needs to be brought out more strongly. Real business people making business decisions. Putting Lancashire on the worldwide map for exporting. SMEs coming through strongly, so a voice for smaller businesses as well as the industry primes that we have. Thoughts around opportunity, transport, connectivity. Maybe something we can come back to in the Q&A session. Give you about 10 more seconds and then we'll move on to a couple more questions. Okay, so I think some takeaways in terms of what's in this for the small and medium-sized enterprises within Lancashire, how that comes through more strongly. Investment is obviously a key strand, and the environment starting to come through as well. And schools. Funding for schools. Okay, let's hop on to another one. So, if we get to September, October, the statutory instruments have been laid, the CCA is in place. In its first 12 months, in the first year, what would you like to see a Lancashire CCA prioritising? Just to say that these slides can be submitted to Ipsos as part of the response, so I don't know what they'll make of them, but some interesting themes and a nice way of getting some quick feedback. Okay, some of the similar things we saw previously. We've not mentioned social impact previously, that's an interesting one. Poverty fashion. Support for traditional skills, biodiversity. Connectivity within the region or out without the region, I'm quite sure. Scale-up support. Skills for young people. Broadband, that's the first time that's come up. Electricity. Martin, you need to tell me about East Lancs. Do you have ubiquitous electricity? I'm not telling you what he said. Okay, about 10 more seconds on that one. Transport, SMEs, homelessness coming through with more than one response and emphasis. Bars and clubs, that's interesting. Right, and the third of these questions I'll move on to. Okay. Across those 7 work packages that we've heard about, where will progress create the most impact for Lancashire businesses? So, I'll probably get this wrong, but if you can think back, investment, skills, housing, low carbon, culture and tourism, transport, and non-transport. There's a list on slide. Closest we're going to get to the Eurovision Song Contest. I'm not sure how many times I let people vote on this, so if you're all piling your votes into one thing. Culture and tourism's fallen off the bottom of the screen. I assume there's a huge green bar for that. Oh, somewhere. Okay, so a strong majority for skills. I think it's just people vote less as they get down the page. Maybe about jumble. I think there is an option that they all appear in different order on people's screens, but did do that. So hierarchy around skills, innovation, trade and investment, roughly equivalent transport and digital, net zero housing. Less well prioritised. So I'll find out what the culture and tourism vote is for you and report back. But hopefully, that gives you a sense of what we could explore further in the Q&A. I've just come back to say that this link, or the one on the black card, will take you straight to the devolution questionnaire. It will follow quite a similar process and quite a similar narrative to what you've seen on the screen there. There's a discussion of each of those 7 themes and a question about how strongly you agree with it or not. I think the key thing for us is the free text box at the end. So if you've got real suggestions, really practical points to make, please use the free text box. And by all means, you can also email responses straight into us, and those will be gathered up within the devolution response itself. So that's it from me, but I think Simon's now going to move us into some Q&As if you've got any questions.
Yeah, thank you, gents. Phil, could I ask you to sort of come up to the front as well, because you can feel the questions between you. I'm hoping we've got a lot of questions in the room, so who's going to start me off? If you stick your hand in there and I'll come to you so you can introduce yourself and then ask your question, as everyone runs to the back. Okay, well, Miranda, seeing as you're there, and it lets me get my steps in, I'll start to the back and I'll come to you. But if you can start thinking about your questions, we've got probably 35 minutes worth of Q&A, so Miranda.
Thank you, thank you. So, if we have this Tier 2 combined authority, so we don't have a mayor, how do we have a strong Lancashire voice to government that can fight for the investment we need?
I think don't be confused by the fact that we haven't got a mayor, would be my view. The strong voice is the fact that we have got a combined county authority, which I think, to be fair to the government, they understand how hard it has been. They're interested, as I said earlier, they're interested in how it works with a county of our diverse political and sort of local authority makeup. So there is I think that there is a willingness by the government to listen to the combined county authority. So I don't see, at this stage certainly, I don't see the absence of a mayor as so it's significant, but it's not the end of the world. And it certainly, I think, meant that, as I said earlier about being pragmatic, then that was not a reason for not going down the route we've gone down. So I'm reasonably confident that the government want this to work. They're interested in how we make it work. So there is a strong voice. It is the combined county authority.
I've got three. I'll come to you third, Jason. Ram, could I ask you to stand up? In fact, maybe stand on the chair. No, I'm joking. Just introduce yourself and then ask us your question.
Hi, Phil. Ram Gupta from a company called Nibble IT. The question is really in two-tier questions. So we're talking about opportunity and skills. So let's talk about the SME community. So we'll talk about devolution, talk about combined authority. These can be just acronyms to a lot of people. What are the real opportunities presented to SME businesses, and what hope can you give to them going into 2024, 2025 and beyond to house their SME business in this combined authority? And as these SME business owners are walking past McDonald's looking to the ground, what hope or what sentence would you give to the people on the ground that don't have housing or homes to say a combined authority will give you opportunity?
The simple answer is that we believe, and that's why this devolution has happened across the country, is that it is much easier for people like yourselves and colleagues in SMEs to influence because it's here. And that's the simple answer. At the current moment, as I said earlier, these powers are carried out by, I was going to say faceless bureaucrats, but that's a pretty negative way of saying it, isn't it? But anyway, it's carried out by good eggs in offices in Westminster. We really believe that by having it local, it opens up opportunities for us to be much closer to yourselves and to hear much more your voice and to understand what it is you want. And in the context then of changing people's lives, we've got to be careful because some of this is about government policies. And I mean, I noticed there was a true affordable housing was put up on earlier, and that's something that we desperately would like to do. I mean, certainly in Blackburn we've got a decent record in terms of affordable housing. Whether it's true affordable, I think it depends on everybody's pockets. But some of it, we have to work within the government framework, of course. They make the rules, they change the laws, but we we speak with a better, louder voice because of what we are doing here.
Just to pick up on Ram's point around the SME community, we subscribe to a national business database called Bohurst, which looks at where investment deals are being done and the scale of the economy. I think Richard from LBV has already flagged to me that we're struggling to find new start and younger businesses. They're less abundant on the ground than they used to be within Lancashire. So, you know, is there a question about enterprise? There's definitely a question about investment. If you look at where big deals are being done, scale of turnover of some of our companies, with the exception of Euro garages, who are, I think, about 10 times the size of any other, probably more than that, any other sort of deals that are being done within the Lancashire economy, you know, we are performing really poorly in terms of getting access to capital, getting access to the necessary technologies to actually grow. So better integration of that activity, working more holistically around those things as opposed to district by district, would really help, I think, in terms of giving a consistent base. I've been reported in some of these other sessions that, you know, businesses can work with a minimal amount of support, but what they really want is consistency from place to place, so they know if their business model works there, and we're just not able to offer that at the moment within Lancashire. So that is certainly somewhere where the CCA offers an opportunity to bring some more uniformity to what's going on out there and the way in which we can potentially assist the SME base.
Morning, Azim from Gemini Commercial Cleaning. Phil mentioned it a few times, this was the only deal that we had. So it's taken us that long to get to this stage. So what have we actually missed out on as local businesses, as communities?
We'd have been better off if we'd done this 18 months ago. You know, I mean, it's this has been on the agenda at the Lancashire leaders meetings for about 7 years. But so, I mean, really, Nadine, I mean, you know, you can join the dots, really. I mean, we think, certainly the three top tier authorities think that this is the right thing to do. Certainly, for example, if you look at the amount of money that government has given to Greater Manchester and to the combined, whatever it's called, Mersey Liverpool Authority, I mean, we've missed out on a lot of stuff, you know, I mean, we know that. But it's been hard to persuade people to see the wood for the trees.
Hi, good morning. Jason Kingston from Cube Thinking. We work with a lot of scale-up businesses in the region, work very closely with them and the leaders. And what we've seen for the success of those leaders is the strong leadership by an individual. What you are proposing here, is that not Devo light? And the reason I mention that is because the lack of a visible leader who is accountable rather than a panel, does that not allow cracks to be there, which would reduce the accountability which would be required?
Yeah, I understand that question. I mean, and that's the theory behind the concept of a mayor. I mean, that's, you know, I understand that. I think it all began with the mayor of New York and things. People thought that that was a way of making stuff happen. So I understand that. Is it Devo light? It probably would be wrong to say it isn't. You know, I mean, I suppose I'm interested, to be honest with you, as well, about the concept of a mayor of a fairly diverse and large place called Lancashire. That's the bit that sort of interests me. I mean, I suppose I could make a very obvious point, which is that this is not the end. So you know, there's nothing to stop us down the line from moving on if we think that that's the right thing to do. And it could be that, I mean, the other thing that could happen is that an incoming an incoming government may change the rules so that it could be that some of the powers that currently are restricted to a mayoral authority might be changed around, so that's a possibility. But no, I mean, I get the point. I really understand the question. I suppose what I ought to say is that it is our job to try to make sure that not so much that your question's not valid, but that some of the things that kind of conceptual idea of a strong leader can achieve, we can try and do it anyway. But I really get the question.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Phil. I've got a couple of questions on this table, and if someone wants to catch my eye, I'll work my way around. So I'll come to you third, madam.
Good morning. My name is Fazaldad, college principal at Blackburn. Just a couple of observations and a question. One was, I come from the West Midlands, and I still live in the West Midlands, even though I'm here in the week. So I'm aware of the West Midland Combined Authority and the significant investment they've been able to put down. And it builds on a bit of the question that the colleague earlier asked. If the big money is with the mayor being in place, what are our plans? This is just phase one, yeah? So what is that longevity? I suppose that's my question. But on a very positive point, I do think it's the right thing. The sad thing really is, I think, Phil, is that it'd be nice to get all the other 12 local authorities, councils on board, because surely a Lancashire joined up, cemented, is far more strong to demonstrate to the powers to be that we mean business.
You're right, Fazal. that would be a good thing. It's bloody hard. Is the obvious point to make. I mean, one would like to hope that once the process starts, that people will recognise that it's beneficial for everybody, but I guess all I really, in all the meetings we've had over the last umpteen years, we've never been anywhere near consensus on virtually anything, and if that makes you all sit there feeling gloomy and shaking your heads, then I understand that. And I can only offer really as a sort of, I was going to say an apology. No, that's not true. There's no reason why I should offer an apology, because in Blackburn with Darwen, we've always been absolutely bloody clear that this kind of thing is what we should be doing. It's just that the forum ends up with just a lot of very local issues clouding it. But maybe, Fazal, the answer is that once it, we're going through a period of this minute, where there is consultation, and that's right. You'll have been reading your local papers, a significant number of councils have decided that they don't like it, they don't want it, whatever, that kind of stuff. Hopefully that's something that we put behind us, because you're right, from a government point of view, it just looks a lot better if people are involved in the process. I mean, it would be daft of me to say anything other than that.
Just to respond to Faz's question about the West Midlands, I think I have to go back to the point that sort of the stuff that Andy Street and other mayors have done, yes, in part it's to do with having resource and having a core grant or a core investment fund that sits alongside the mayoral combined authority, but it's also about the way in which they compete for other government investments. Just an example, earlier this year, I particularly believe that Lancashire has a set of assets currently which are hugely competitive, really important to the UK, and which really need to be built on and invested in. Earlier this year, government rolled out a programme of investment districts, innovation districts as it called them, and the only people who actually won resource were people in combined authority areas. So it followed resource into South Yorkshire, it followed resource into Manchester, ironically, South Yorkshire around advanced engineering and manufacturing, which is precisely where Lancashire should be getting innovation resource. So it's not just about a core budget that comes with a combined authority, it's about that maturity of competition, and it's about the work that people like Cam have done to make the case for the digital sector within Lancashire. Now that we've got that base of information, we're in a really strong place to kick on and have that more in-depth, more mature conversation with government about that additional resource on top.
Good morning, Claire Shaw from Blackburn College. My question also follows the Devo Light comment and the other comments about resource. Mine is a question about where we fit in the northern footprint. That is the Northern Powerhouse Partnership still part of our concern, and do we see our engagement with those other combined authorities differing, strengthening, lessening, and is it important?
The North as a concept, I think, is probably not as strong as it certainly was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. You know, that it felt like it probably had legs at that stage. You've mentioned the Northern Powerhouse Partnership, which is principally a sort of commercially led, you know, sort of private club in all manner respects. There's also prior, you know, something that could potentially be lost with the end of LEPS is that we had a collection of the 11 geographies of the North who came together as the Northern Powerhouse 11, and they had a sort of a governance body above them, which is going to morph and change, so it will still be there, but how that works with a collection of combined authorities and mayors as opposed to the LEP chairs will be different. But there is still that collective activity. There'll be a convention of the North, so the sort of gathering of the clans at the end of February, which is still happening. Still able to draw senior government ministers up here to answer and explain where they see their plans for the North, particularly after the investment in rail has been withdrawn and dissipated into other things. So there is still some weight in that Northern concept, and we do work together around things like investment and trade, around skills, around image and culture. There are work streams that are collective to the North. We need to be careful we don't get squeezed out of those. You know, we don't want the Eden experience to be fly into Manchester, stay in Manchester, come to Morecambe for the day, and then go to the Lake District. We want people to spend money in Lancashire. So it's important to work within that wider geography, but it's also important to recognise that Lancashire has a lot to offer and is probably not getting as much as it could out of those arrangements at the moment.
Good morning, Amanda Michu from Community and Business Partners. I'd like to ask you about the new business board that you've referenced a couple of times. How will that business board be made up? Who will be on there? How will those people be chosen? And then you just slipped in at the end there that it won't be a voting right on that board. Why is that? And how will the SMEs and the third sector organisations have a voice on that board as well?
So the exact structure of a business board is still being debated by the three upper tier local authorities, just to make sure we get that right. There's an awful lot to cram in there. We need an influential spokesperson from the business community who's going to be listened to seriously by government and can add to the messages that are coming out of the combined county authority. So it's really important we get the right person as the chair for that organisation. From my own personal background, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but there's an awful lot of expertise from prior structures, from the LEP, from the sector bodies that it's set up, and from the subgroups around things like skills and innovation, where businesses have come together to actually put their own priorities on the table. And we need to think about how sensibly we can accommodate them within that business board structure. There's something about some of those priority themes, things like culture and tourism, where do they fit We've presently got a new structure around tourism, something called the Local Visitor Economy Partnership, which for the first time sees the two tourist boards, that's not a proper term, but it's what I understand them, working together from Blackpool and the one that covers wider Lancashire. So we're starting to see more collaboration in that space. But that needs to link through to the business board, and then that chair, as we said, sits as a non-voting member of the combined county authority. I defer to Phil, and I'll hand over to Phil at this point, but you know, Phil's point about this is not about this has gone through on 3 votes to 2. This is about consensus and hearing people around the table. So the fact that the business voice, the LEP never had a seat at those tables, so this is a step forward in terms of the representation of businesses. Take your point about, very much so about the community and voluntary sector. Did a similar event with Shout Network in Preston last week, and they didn't see themselves as fully as they should within the document. So I think it's vitally important that part of this consultation exercise, we get that message back strongly. I think the community and voluntary sector are absolutely implicit and essential to delivery in a lot of those strands, but you don't just see them within the document as it stands at the moment, and that's something we probably need to address. Do you want to say something about voting?
I was going to say something else, which was that I think that the purpose of having an event like this is really to hear people's opinions. So the fact that we haven't dotted every I and crossed every T is not a bad thing. It is we're here listening, and you know we've been working at a sort of governmental level to try and get this across the line. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with us saying, well, that's a really good point, and we need to think about it, kind of thing. Just to reiterate the point about voting, I'm really clear that if we end up keep turning up and having to have votes and voting each other down, then we've failed. I'm reliably informed that they've never had a vote in Greater Manchester once, but that doesn't mean to say people don't do work on it. It doesn't mean to say people don't disagree at the starting point. What it means is that in the end, by the time you've got to a consensus, then everybody's had their view, and that's inevitable. I mean, it's absolutely inevitable. There'll not be a single simple answer to everything. But I think, and we've been really clear about this when we've spoken to government officials, that we really see this as a consensus operation. And so, I mean, if you heard me say what I said, we've got Blackpool 1, that's like football results, isn't it? Blackburn 1, and then Lancashire 2. So if we got to it, we could get to, and there isn't a casting vote. And we're very keen that there isn't a casting vote, because a casting vote would start to send the wrong signals. It would make it sound like people could gang up, and so we want we've got a chair, and the chair this year and is the chairman of is the leader of the Lancashire County Council, and those are from Blackpool and Blackburn's perspective. We don't see that as a bad thing, because we absolutely believe that this has to be done in a consensus operation, because if it isn't, then I think we're failing.
Yes. Morning, Dean Simpson, Pentland Wholesale. I'm a little bit cynical about all this, because from my point of view, you've already accepted that you've nearly missed the boat on this. You've been messing around for far too long to make a decision to move forward. And in my opinion, this is a real opportunity for Lancashire. And there's a danger that it could be messed up because of the delays that you've already accepted you've created yourselves. Is it not crying out for a proper leader? Somebody who's dynamic, bit of imagination, somebody who can drive this. I actually think back to within COVID, when Greater Manchester and Andy Burnham was making a lot of noise about that they needed more money, or they wanted more from the government. Steve Rotherham did the same within Liverpool. It seems to me that the way we're going about this, it really needs a single dynamic voice. I echo the chap over here who seems to have the same concerns.
Well, feel free to be cynical. That's your choice. And I mean, no, look, I mean, no, but no, you know, I'm not offended, I'm pretty hard to offend, I'm from Blackburn. The journey that we've not done is a bit like, you know, so what? You're right, I mean, there's nobody should be proud of the fact that it's taken us a long time to get to here on behalf of Lancashire. But, you know, that's a bit like ancient history, really. That's what happened, that's how it happened. 2 points to make, I guess. One is the pragmatic decision to do what we've got on offer is, in my view, the right one, because if we didn't do that, then we genuinely go back to, well, we don't go back to square one, we go back to minus square one, because we will have indicated to the government that we're not interested in devolution at all, and we've got every right to believe that that will then lead us pushed to the back of the queue. So that's one thing. And I mean, and the question about the strong leader, then, as I said earlier, it may come to pass. It will be one of the decisions that will eventually be made. I'd like to hope that some of your cynicism will be taken away by the way in which this combined county authority works, because the four of us who are on it have an absolute genuine desire to make this work on behalf of Lancashire. Now, that's all I can say. I mean, and I get the point, and as I said, I mean, in the end, a journey starts where a journey starts. I was going to quote Mao Zedong, really, but who said that every long journey starts with a small step. Well, this is a small step, but it is a step. If we don't take it, then the journey hasn't started.
Probably got time for another question, but oh, go on, Peter, I'll come to you. I was just going to, well, let me share one with you. I was at a meeting with the Hyndburn businesses last week, and the gentleman who spoke, he's a cynical with a capital C, and his view was that, and he was well researched because he talked about the 20 million, and he said there's 6 million going to Blackpool, there's 6 million going to Blackburn, and there's 6 million going to Preston. Is it a coincidence that they're the upper tier authorities? But he also had an issue with the language as well. You know, if you're a politician in Pendle, and Blackburn keep telling you that they're an upper tier authority, there's just a language challenge that is just putting people's backs up politically. And is it the case that there's been a decision taken to just sort of go ahead without them? And if that's the case, how do you then bring the doubting councils along? Because this only works when you've got true collaboration and real cross-LA support, cross-local authority support.
We are the upper tier authorities because well, let me just tell you something. So 75% of the revenue that we collect in Blackburn, we spend on adult social care and children's services. Pendle don't do that at all. They don't have those services because they are done for them by Lancashire County Council. So there is a really functional difference between those three authorities that carry out those really significant and increasingly difficult functions. So there's nothing, it's not like sort of we're being big-headed and saying like we're Blackburn, we are a big authority. We're Blackburn and we do those things, and that's what makes us in the government's eyes an upper tier authority. So, you know, I mean, that's like just how it is, you know. I mean, in terms of, sorry, I've lost my thread or something. You said,
I accept that, and to be fair, I think he, if given that answer, would have accepted that. I think his point was, or I guess my question is, having observed that strong opinion, how do you win him over as a politician? Because this works when you've got Pendle politicians, Hyndburn politicians, Burnley politicians, all Ribble Valley politicians, all on board with this, and how do you get them there?
I think as I said to Fazil earlier, I'd like to think that once this happens, if you want, once it becomes a reality, then people will recognise that being part of the show is better than standing on the sidelines and booing, really. But, you know, I can't really offer much. I mean, you asked another question, right, which was about the monies. Well, there's nothing complicated about the monies. They have been given to the 3 partners in it. So that's what it is, you know. So, you know, you've got local authorities saying, voting and saying we don't want anything to do with this. Well, it's a bit like, okay, you know, what do you want us to do? So, I mean, there's no great conspiracy about the divvying up of that 20 million. It has gone to the 3 constituent parts and the cyber force. So that's, you know, some of this is just a bit like, you know, kind of, I don't know what you want me to say, you know.
Can I just make the point that sort of inevitably, because the county is a 2-tier place, when we spend money, it's going to be in a district as well. So that £6 million is being spent in South Ribble, you know. Wow, South Ribble on the cusp of Ribble Valley and on the cusp of Hyndburn and Blackburn. It's a point about the investment goes where the opportunity is. If Lancashire spreads what it has, dividing it 14 ways so everyone gets fair shares, that doesn't advance our highest priority or our highest potential opportunities, and that's the way in which decision making is made. It's not that, you know, sort of this is being taken away from other people.
Thanks. Peter.
Hello, Peter Cattle. I was born and brought up in what is now one of the most deprived wards in the UK, in Bradley Ward in Pendle. In fact, the house I was born in was seen as being so desirable that Morrison's knocked it down to build a car park. I moved away from the area for many years and came back eventually, and I live in Lancashire Bridge now on the eastern side of Combe, which is quite a desirable area to live. A couple of weeks ago I went to my dentist, who happens to be in Bradley Ward, and I thought I'll have a look around the old neighbourhood. So I had a look around the old neighbourhood and I was appalled by what I saw. Absolutely and utterly appalled by the standard of housing, by the environment. My dad's old house looked like a crack den. It was just absolutely awful. And so I feel, and that's largely because 60% of the housing in that ward was built in the mid to late 19th century and is not fit for purpose anymore. And I think it's easy to sort of look at this kind of strategic level of unitary authorities and all that kind of stuff and forget about the fact that underneath all this lies a bunch of people who are having to live in these hellholes. Kids who have been brought up in those conditions, and for me, the number one priority should be housing. For me, housing, if you look around that particular ward, housing is the single biggest issue. They're just not fit for purpose. So I'd like to hear what the devolved powers would enable us to do about housing. I'm not going to mention what specifically what would be going on with housing.
Your point is, I mean, is very fair. I mean, in 2015, when I became Regen cabinet member in Blackburn, 65% of housing in Blackburn and Darwen was pre-1919 terraces. Some of it in good shape, quite a lot of it not. Since then, we've embarked on a very significant house building programme. So we've built around about, I think, 5,000 or so new houses in Blackburn, quite a lot of them affordable. Your point is absolutely right, and it's one of the things that distinguishes East Lancashire particularly. You know, and the housing was thrown up by mill owners as the towns developed, so it's no great surprise. So, you know, I mean, your point is utterly correct. And I mean, I went a few weeks ago to sort of open a new little housing block that has been built in Darwen, and it was absolutely heartrending, really. There was a a family living in a house who had previously been evicted from a no-fault eviction, which was supposed to be disappearing a long time ago, never has. They've got autistic children. They ended up sleeping on the floor in somebody else's house, and they've moved into an affordable house, and it has absolutely changed their lives. And that's something that we just have to keep on saying to people. If we want to make a significant difference to people's lives in this part of the town, or this part of the country, improving the quality of housing is absolutely critical. So that's important that we believe that, and at a bigger level we can make those points to people who want to listen to us. So you and I would have absolutely no disagreement whatsoever about the nature of what we need to do, about the fact that those houses need to act. I mean, one of the things that we have got in here, and I asked for this very specifically, we've got new CPO powers, because one of the things that you will have observed in that part of the world is that there are houses. It ought to be a lot easier for us to take control of houses that are bringing the neighbourhood down, that are absentees, where it's fallen into the hands of absentee landlords, people who don't care. We need to be I think we need to have more powers, and we have got more powers in that sense in this. So I also think we need new powers of demolition, because there's no arguments that some of those houses in parts of East Lancashire are past their sell-by date. So I think that what I can say to you, sir, is that we get it, and I particularly get it because we've been getting it now in Blackburn for the last umpteen years. And it's critical that we make that, because that makes a difference. And of course, let me make one other point, which is that one of the other things that is engaging people, there's an incredibly significant fact in Lancashire about what's called worklessness, and that's people who don't work because they're not well. And that's, this isn't about layabouts and all that kind of stuff. This is mental health stuff. This is all those things. There's a huge number, and Andy would know the number, and I can't remember what it is, but it's in the billions of people who don't work. And part of the point of new housing is about that, which is that the people living in poor quality housing are more likely to suffer from different kinds of forms of illness, etc., that makes them not work. So there's a really, not only is it about people's lives, but there's a really serious economic point about it as well, about what can we do across the piece, and we've made that. It wasn't on the slides, but this question of how do we address worklessness and what, that kind of story is one of the things that we're going to make a priority. Hope that helps.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Peter. I think we share the same dentist. We've got a couple of minutes left, so last quick word from both of you, just to wrap up.
I think the figure is in Pendle, it's about 30% of the people of working age are actually not in the workforce due to ill health. So, that would be a massive uplift in terms of capacity. Just one reflection from me, and I think given today as a business audience, I wouldn't want this to be seen as more public sector is the answer to this. This is very much about a partnership. This is very much about enabling and allowing the private sector to do what it does well. You are the creators of growth. You are the creators of productivity. On that housing question, look at the places who are leading now. Who are the people who've done deals with Octopus Energy to retrofit their poor housing stock? It's places like West Yorkshire Combined Authority. So it is about new partnerships. It is about reaching out for public-private sector solutions. This isn't just another tier of public sector will solve the problem. This is about a new way of doing things.
And really, the final point for me is a bit of a repeat point, which is that I don't think nobody's saying this is perfect. I'm comfortable if people want to go away calling it Devo Light. It's kind of all right. It would be silly to suggest this is the best deal on earth, because it isn't. It is the deal, though, and so I think that's the point. Is that if we don't And if we didn't take this opportunity, then we genuinely are going back to not square one, but square minus one, because in fairness to the government, they've sort of given us an opportunity to get out of the roadblock of trying to get 15 authorities to all agree by saying to us, if there's 3 of you can agree, then let's see where we get to. So, as I said, nothing in the world is perfect. This isn't perfect, but it is a hell of a lot better than either standing still or going backwards.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being so engaged. Your call to action is to, if you haven't already, to engage with the consultation online, lancashiredevolution.co.uk. You've got the little black business cards on your desk. We will also send a post-event email with that link in it as well. Are you happy, gents, for us to do a PDF of the slides?
Absolutely.
In that post-event email as well. So if you want the detail that was in those slides, you'll get a PDF of that at some point today. If you're looking for a streaming partner for the Lancashire Devo meetings, or for the Lancashire Combined Authority meetings, then I could recommend our good friends from Bellyflop. Thank you, Jonathan. And if you want to re-watch any of today, you can do at the East Lancs Chamber YouTube channel. You can also circulate it around friends, colleagues, staff members, anyone else that you want to get engaged in the consultation, which closes at midnight on the 26th of January.
11:59 in the morning.
11:59 on the 26th of January, lancashiredevolution.co.uk. Thank you so much, everybody. Safe journey and enjoy the rest of your days. Thank you.